laughter. See if you still feel that way. Just to get started briefly, we discovered that there's lots and lots of errors in the Florida Master Site file. And what are we going to do to fix it? The state can't fix it, and they weren't really responsible because if they're given garbage, they publish the garbage. So, and a lot of it was innocent errors. But we decided to make a concerted effort to try and correct the files by conducting a census of all the sites in Brevard County, both historical, bridges, and archaeological. And this is part of what we're trying to do. Number one, we want to correct errors, verify locations, add content where we can, document current condition, and add new sites, particularly space boom structures, which are kind of unique to our area to a certain extent. And they're all on the beach, so they'll all be ultimately threatened. These sites were all reported by CRMs as being destroyed. They're not, they're still there. There may be one or two that are gone. But they were based originally on the bridge going over to Cocoa Beach. That bridge was moved, so the CRMs thought that the sites were north of the bridge. Well, they are, the old bridge, not the new bridge. This is another example. This is another huge midden that was hauled away for shell, but the southern end of it was intact. And when they put in a pool, they found Spanish artifacts in there. Spanish artifacts weren't found in the midden originally. They were in the burial mound, but that's proof that the Spanish were there. We're also recording new sites. This is a black earth midden on the edge of the St. Johns near Lake Washington. We think there's a burial mound in the top where we stayed away from that. We're just doing some post holes on the edges just to verify the cultural content. This is our crew. Also the steamboat landing at Rockledge, which was the uppermost landing for commercial steamboating in the St. Johns River. I was actually there when that photograph was taken. And we found newspaper articles of the steamboats that were there and the schedules that they had. This, we try and keep real good relations with private landowners. They brought to our attention this canoe, which we think probably isn't a canoe. It's either a canoe under construction or it's a faux canoe, a natural tree fall. And either way, it's very important. It needs to be studied. But it's underwater right now. We also, the destruction of historic sites. This was a historic house in Melbourne that burned 3 weeks ago. The other one was destroyed by Hurricane Jean and Francis in 2004. So we try and update the files as we really do lose things. We have, this was done in 1949-50, Irving Rouse survey. You can see all these black dots are coastal sites. So most of our sites on the St. Johns and Indian River are threatened by sea level rising. There's a lot more sites that have been added since this original survey was done. And there's man-made destruction, not just sea level rising. When you build an inlet, that's Sebastian Inlet, 1943 and 16. The sand piles up on the north jetty and is starved from the south jetty. The north jetty is actually protecting a mound, coquina mound on the south side, eroded the Cato site, which Bullen and Carl Clausen investigated in 1967. I'm seated there on the edge of the pit. I don't know where we're going to try and see if any of this site exists. Bullen estimated that sea level was down 5 to 10 feet when this site was occupied. This is the Gaudier site. Again, it's mislocated in the site files. We'll correct it. It's when it was occupied, it was a dry site, but over time, it's an archaic burial site. Now it's semi-flooded, and eventually it will be flooded too, but it's been mostly excavated. This is really unique. I boo-hooed this collection 20 years ago, thought it was a hoax, but since then I believe it's true. This was dredged from the channel of the Indian River on one of the spoil islands. A wide variety of cherts, a greenstone, bannerstone, and right next to it was something really unique, a Mesoamerican looking effigy head made of stone. I've since learned that other people have found lithics on the other side of the channel on some other islands. So I think there was a village right in the channel or on the edge of the channel, back, well, we're not sure, we've got to date these lithics and see what they date to. This is Turtle Mound again, and the steps taken to protect it, but how long will it last? It's very expensive, we can't do this to every mound. We can't move mounds, but there are things that we can move, and in a minute well, you can see that those structures don't last. Eventually the sea level rises. But Randy, you were talking about wanting something about retreating. This next slide hopefully will show you that. This is the Cape Canaveral Lighthouse, if I time these right. And there's the original and the secondary, built in 1868. It was threatened by erosion in the 1880s. Well, they decided to move it. And in 1894, they moved that thing a mile inland. Will we have to move it again? Oddly enough, the base of the foundation is still there. So they really didn't need to move it. It'd still be there. What do we want to know from all this? We need to verify location of all sites so we know where they are. We need to canvass archaeologists. What do we want to learn from these sites? I'd like to know the carbon dates of all the bottoms. How old are these sites? When were they started? And what else do you guys want to know? We need to prioritize them. We need to establish disaster emergency response teams when there is a hurricane. We need to develop emergency policies and procedures with FEMA and local emergency management groups, establish reserve funding that we can go out and investigate these sites on a drop of a notice. And otherwise, well, eventually we're all going to have to be manning the pumps if we want to investigate a lot of these sites. Thank you.